Just to be a man who walked 1,000 miles to find you at my door. You're surprised that I even knew that.
No, I'm not. Why would I be surprised? You're old. You should know that song.
Hey, man, I have. You know, one thing I was thinking about this earlier today. One thing we haven't really talked about on this show, on the Jake and Cory podcast, is music.
That's true. That's true.
You and I are cut from two different cloths of music, but music is one of the things that brought us together, you know, because we both you're a musician. I'm a musician, a former musician. I can't tell you the last time my fingers touched the ivory keys, but
you know
we
what,
both
Cory?
have.
I don't
we
know.
both are musicians.
I don't know if I knew that you played piano.
You didn't know that I played the piano. I played the piano. I played the drums, the saxophone.
I know you're a good singer. Well, maybe we could talk about it on this one.
Yeah, because please,
anything
if we can
else
talk about anything else, then the shit that's going on, I'm all in.
Well, let's start the show. What is up, boyos? This is the Jake and Cory podcast. I am Jake. That is Cory. What's up, Cory?
What's up, Jake?
You know, not much. Before we start getting into the whatever we do on this show,
yeah,
I just want to bring up to you, I have gone through every episode of the show recently that we've done, and I think this is episode 17 now, which, nice. We've done it. We've done it.
That's hats off to you.
Hey, man, you too. We're in
No,
it.
that's hats off to you, because to pull the curtain back, I thought you'd bail around 5, episode 7, episode 6, maybe. So,
well, maybe 6 more, but
and I'm just waiting for the text.
no, dude, I love doing this show. I love our rapport. Our show doesn't have any real structure, and I also really love that. But I was going through the shows, and I noticed something. We started at a very interesting time, I think. Right before the corona happened, when our biggest worry was Super Tuesday, and it's and it seems like our show has really been a documentation of a descent into madness.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
And, you know, if anyone's listening to this episode, I'd implore you to just go back to the first one and just listen to all of them, because it's a great chronicling to everything. Our opinions have changed.
Yeah, and you can literally see, I would say you could see the wave of our emotions, and particularly mine, because remember the positive 0.4% of people with COVID-19, and how the numbers are in our favor, and blah 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 blah. To now, I'm like, fuck everybody.
Yeah.
So, dude, it's ridiculous. And we might get into it later on in the show, my anxiety right now. I'm really considering going to my doctor and getting some anti-anxiety pills at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much going on in the world. I don't know if
our show has been, I mean, we hit the wave when we started this thing. We hit the wave of madness and the ludicrous time that this world was about to spin into. And I would classify it as a spinning top that you get out of one of those claw hamburger machines that you find in the pre-lobby of a Denny's. You take that little spinning top, you spin it, and instead of the top slowing down and eventually resting on its side, this bitch just keeps spinning faster and faster.
Dude, yeah, and it doesn't end. And everyone's like, well, once 2021 hits, it's like, nah, dude, that's just 2020 part 2.
It literally is. I mean, dude, we now have asteroids coming at us. I think that there's only 2 smart people out of this entire equation, Jake, that are going to be okay at the end of the day. And those are the 2 people that went up in that rocket and got the fuck off this planet last week.
For real, man. They were smart.
Those were the smart ones, man. We should have sent a woman so they could at least, populate the Earth, but they're astronauts, so I'm sure they'll find some way to bring back humanity. But those are the only 2 smart motherfuckers at this point.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you guys are going to space? Good call. That's a good call.
Yeah. You know what I mean? If there would be any time, it would be the present that I would be the one standing outside the Kennedy Space Center holding up a thumb trying to thumb a ride. I mean, can I go with y'all? Can brother get a ride up to where y'all going? I'll clean toilets in the Space Center. You know what I mean? I'll do the old reach around because I know it gets lonely up there. Whatever it takes, just let me get to the space with you. Anywhere but this planet at this point. Elon Musk, let's get it going. You've got my full support. Let's get another planet occupied so we can get the fuck off of this one because this one is going down the drain, man. Get me out of here.
I wanted to bring that up at the start of the show because I just think it's great, man. Because I think I hope one day people will go back and listen to these and be like, "Holy shit, this is."
Yeah, you could literally make a timeline.
Yeah, it's a beautiful timeline of everything that's going down.
You could make a timeline of the reaction of everything that has been taking place, and it's absolutely insane, but it's also very therapeutic at the same time because we both, and a lot of those shows we didn't necessarily agree and we didn't have the same outlook, but we had a platform to express ourselves.
Yeah, and the one thing we agree on is that, we're homies, and that's what matters.
Homies.
That's what matters.
We're more than friends, but less than lovers.
Well,
that's an old song.
I disagree with that. Just because COVID happened doesn't mean we're not still lovers, Cory.
That's very true. I remember the first show that we did in Studio G, or a second show we did in Studio G. I had mentioned this to you after last week's show that you brought in some libations and some beers.
Yeah.
And throughout this whole entire time that we've been separated, I have refused to discard those beers. So what I did is after the show, when I realized that, Studio G, I mean, people don't realize that Studio G is literally like 10 feet by 11 feet closet space tucked away somewhere in a bunker that's 5 stories under the real business. And when we get scared, we turn the lights off. Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, I think I got some stories crossed up there.
It's actually in Florence, Arizona.
Yes, in Florence. But you brought these beers in, and throughout this entire time we've been separated, I took those beers home, and I've been holding on to them. And those beers, when we are reunited, because, Jake, I do believe we will be reunited either in Studio G or on Mars.
Yeah.
One of those ways we're going to be
station.
reunited, and we're going to share those beers.
Yeah, and we won't even have separate cans. We will share one beer because we're there's no more Rona, and we don't have to worry about it anymore.
When there's no more worry about Rona, I am going to kiss everybody on the mouth. I mean, deep tongue to the esophagus is what I'm going for. Tongue, I want to lick your last thought.
I love that.
I'm licking people's thoughts. That's how bad it's gonna be. It's gonna be amazing.
So I think last week's show went really well. I think we had a very productive conversation, and I very much enjoyed it. I personally don't have like too much to add to it. I've started so many fires on the internet already,
Of course you have.
just arguing with everyone,
It's
my
I've had
family. Like
people
it's just ugh.
try to throw fire at me because of the reach, though small, that I do have because of my internet personality. People are throwing fire at me because I have not spoken out or put out my views on any of my personal social media platforms.
I've maybe gone a little too hard on that front.
Yeah,
It's
I'm the opposite of that, and I honestly don't care because I don't. Me personally, I'm not begrudging anybody that does express themselves like you have. I'm inundated with it, and so
yeah.
I don't think that my additional 2 cents or my additional two views are going to make much of an impact. You know what I mean? On the business side of things, we did make, public statements across all the business platforms. But me personally, people are like, "Why didn't you put up a blackout image on your Instagram? Why didn't you put out a blackout image on your Twitter? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that?" Well, so my response to that is, well, why did you wipe your ass after you took a shit yesterday?
I read a thing that said, like if you don't say anything, that just means you're complicit, and I don't agree with that. Some people, not everyone needs to. Some people just aren't cut out. Not, don't take this the wrong way, but like some people are just like not the ones to raise their voice. Some people just need to, be there. They know what they think in their head. You know what I mean? Like it's
I like to put it this way, Jake. There are Think of it as a worship service in a church. You and I are very familiar, and we have both have history and background in churches.
mhm.
Think of it as a worship service in church. There are those people that will attend a worship service and they'll have their hands lifted and they'll be very vocal with what's going on. Then you'll have other people that will be sitting right next to that person and they'll have their hands folded to themselves and may or not just have their head hanging and just standing along with them. And then you'll also have someone that will be sitting on the same pew that may be sitting in their seat during this worship service and just stoically thinking to themselves and reflecting to themselves. Just because those three individuals are doing and expressing themselves differently doesn't make their views different. It's just the way that they are choosing to express themselves. It doesn't change their ability to love God in that arena, in that scenario. It doesn't mean that the person that's raising their hands and vocalizing during the worship service is any better than the person that's sitting stoically. It's no different. It's just the way those people decide to express their emotions or express their feelings at that time. That's how I parlay this current situation too. I agree with you. Silence isn't complicit, saying that you're complicit with what's going on. Some people are choosing to sit stoically and process this and support it without having to have an audience do their support. Prince gave us the most prime example of how you can support individuals and organizations and not have to have an audience when you do it.
Dude, that's super well put. Super
Thank
well
you.
put. I
It's just
I couldn't
it's
have
just the way
put
that
it
it
better
is.
than that. That's beautiful. That's perfectly said.
Right, because it doesn't just because someone is reacting to it differently doesn't allow. I think this is where we lose humanity in all of this, Jake. Is that when we look at our neighbor, we look at our friend, we look at our family member, and because our neighbor, our friend, and our family member has not is not expressing themselves in a mirrored image of how they are, then we deem them as having a different viewpoint. That couldn't be farther from the truth. Why don't you, people that say that, why don't you go and sit and talk to that person and find out how they're feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Find out what their views are instead of saying, look, because you're not posting shit all over your social media and because you're not posting videos of your reactions to this, you must be complicit. Fuck you.
Yeah.
You don't know how I am. You don't know what I'm doing.
For real.
Just because I don't need your fucking approval on my reaction to what the day's events are. You don't need my freaking view, whether I'm on the internet and have an internet radio show or not. You don't need my view.
You know what I hate? I think what you said is very well put, perfectly stated. What I really hate, though, and you can agree with me or disagree with me, are the people who post something and they're like, I haven't said anything about any of this, and I don't want to get into debates about any of this. This is, I don't want to talk about it. But then they go on to say, but the rioters. And it's like, so how come you can't stand up for the injustices of the other thing, but with the rioting, you'll be able to talk about that? That's just what really confuses me on that front.
Anything that you see on social media that starts with, I haven't said anything but, or something that starts with, not trying to make waves. I'm going to tell you what that really means. That really means, look at me! Look at me! Woo! I'm going to upset some people. Look at me! Because it's about me and what I've got to say. But I'm going to play timid and shy because I don't want any of you to come at me. But then in the inside, I really want you to come at me because that's the reason why I'm really posting it. Look at me!
That's so perfect, dude. That's hilarious. I had a run-in with like that on the interwebs, and a few of those. It's like they post something, and I'm like, "Hey, you're being dumb," and they're like, "Didn't you read? I didn't want this to be a debate." I'm like, so why'd you post it? If you did, like, and I'm like, it's not a debate. You're wrong. I'm very much the opposite of that, where I'll just post things and be like, come on, bring it on. I'm ready for it, dude.
Okay, and you know what, Jake? I honor that. I honor the fact that you own it, that you're putting something out there that you intend on being inflammatory, and you own it. When people put stuff out there and they claim to not wanting it to be inflammatory, knowing good goddamn well it's going to be, those are the people I can't respect. But if you got somebody that's out there, like Stephen A. Smith, sports commentator, his little ass knows that everything that comes out of his mouth is going to spark some type of response. That's his job. That's what he does. I respect him for what he does. He's never going to say something that you think he's going to say. He's he's a big influencer when it comes to what I do as far as my level of entertainment. I say things that are going to spark a reaction. That's what my job is. That's what Stephen A. Smith does. He owns it. But when you got these people out there that are like, okay, just take a look at this, but I know it's going to piss you off, but I'm not really trying to piss you off. Okay, you really are. Own it, bitch.
Yeah, for real.
Own it.
So, I think we spent a lot of time on it last week, but there are a couple things.
Yeah, I don't want to wail on it again,
There's
man.
a couple things I want to mention, but we don't have to talk about it for too long, because I think we pretty much said our piece. I think people know where we're at, and if they don't, they can go back and listen to that one. Unless you have more to add to that. But, a couple things have transpired throughout the week that I think are worth noting.
Yes.
Like the fact that now that there's a curfew, at least in Arizona, there's a curfew, which is the most bizarre thing that's ever occurred.
Yeah, but by the time people hear this show, that curfew is going to be over.
Maybe the protests seem to continue.
But the unrestfulness has seemed to be quelched for Arizona
for now.
Phoenix.
But we're just now getting back into the weekend, and I think the weekend is when it's gonna be the most fiery, don't you?
Well, yes and no, but I've been I kind of had my thumb on it a little bit in between now and then. Or actually, we'll get into this later in the show. In between my PBS watching, I've been bouncing on and off the internet and kind of seeing that there hasn't been a lot of uncontrolled chaos with the protests. Huge protest, and I think what's happening, Jake, is that now these protests are starting to be more organized. What we kind of all neglected with this situation is that when you had like the Million Man March, and when you had breast cancer awareness marches, and when you had children autism marches, those took weeks and weeks to organize. Um, working working closely with state law enforcement, working
Yeah.
closely with the cities. Um, Protests are big processes. And what happened is that these protests that we experienced last week and ever since George Floyd's death, those protests had no time to really organize. Now, I'm not giving a go ahead for some of the events that took place. I'm just saying that what we're experiencing now, or what I've seen today, this past weekend, is a lot more organized, a lot more church leaders coming out, a lot more planned routes on where we're going to start and where we're going to finish, versus everybody sending out a tweet saying, hey, meet up at the QT on 27th and Camelback. And then, we'll find our way to City Hall. And, if we see a vacant building between then and now, we'll set it afire. So
That was
I
some
think
people,
what we
yeah.
got now, yeah, what we got now is a little bit more organization.
I will say though, as far as like comparing this to, you know, gay pride marches or cancer marches, usually those marches are like, they're almost like parades, and they actually block off the streets. They get it passed by the state that they can do it. And I think the difference between those things and what's happening right now is those things are more to bring awareness to the people and everyone living around, just to bring awareness to like breast cancer or whatever it is. This one is to actually try and bring change on a systemic level. And I think the best way to protest, and the only way protest really works, is to protest in places that they don't want you there at that immediate moment. I'm not saying burn things down, but like, standing outside a city hall without a permit, but there's like hundreds and thousands of you. That's a protest, during the civil rights movements, there was people who would sit in diners, do the sit-ins when they weren't supposed to. That's like, no one's gonna hear you if you're going to places that you're supposed to be. That's the whole thing, is to like, we're done listening. You need to listen to the
spontaneity of it.
Yeah, and you need to listen to us now.
Yeah.
And
I think that has the spontaneity also has a level of impact as well. Maybe the spontaneity of this whole situation went awry due to it being such a younger generation that was behind a lot of the spontaneity. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to say, but what you're saying does have validity.
Yeah, and it just, the rioting and all that stuff, I think most people, unless you're one of the ones doing it, are, saying, hey,
Jake Paul.
Yeah. Looking at you, Jake. Yeah, I think most people are like, don't burn down your houses. Like, that's craziness. But at the same time, to focus on that versus the peaceful protests. And also, you can also make the argument that the police are being just as violent as those looters and rioters. So, I mean, there's so many cases of just police just shooting people with rubber bullets, shooting out tear gas. What happened in front of the White House, I think it was on Monday, is
Yeah.
just crazy. And they're saying there's not tear gas, even though there's videos of them throwing tear gas and shooting bullets at these people who were protesting before the curfew was even
Jesus.
in place, just so
A,
Trumpy could go over there and get his picture taken and be
a
out past
horrible,
curfew himself.
a
And
horrible picture, and has sparked other national leaders to speak out against.
yeah,
I mean, dude, the world is hating us.
it's
The world is laughing at us.
well, and the thing is, they're not hating us. They're with us. You know what I mean?
yes, very true. Very true. Well said.
You know what I mean? They're with us. They're hating the Trump administration, all the corruption going on. They're, a lot of the people in Hong Kong are calling us on our us, or the people standing against it, they're calling us on our double standard. When we were defending looters and rioters out in Hong Kong, because it's like, well, yeah, they had civil unrest. Well, how come we're not doing the same here? And
Right.
so it's this double standard. I was watching, and I like to hear both perspectives, which is hard to do, especially on this one right now, because I feel like I'm very
difficult. Very difficult.
I very much have my mind decided on on this topic, but I like to hear every perspective. So I've turned on Fox News a couple of times, and dude, just listening to Tucker Carlson, it's hard. It's hard to listen to that. He's basically saying racist rhetoric without explicitly being racist. It's like, read between the lines. I know what you're saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that going on. It's a trying time. I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but
No, what changed for me in the last week, since the last show, was particularly Thursday. Thursday was a very challenging day for me. I did tune into the first of three memorial services that were held for George Floyd, and I stood for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, and the weight of that, and to see that family, um, broke me. It didn't anger me. It didn't make me sad. It broke me. And on my other show, um, there was a moment where I broke down. It just hit me that hard because I taped that show on that same night. And so it was heavy on me after that first memorial service. And I know another service took place on Saturday. But that's the biggest change in and what's taken place since the last show was just the reaction to that. And I really, Jake, don't want to get into what broke me down because it was so heavy of a time and really hard to process, especially when it came to just seeing the family's grief. And that's with anytime seeing a family's grief, especially when my family has lost someone, just seeing how the other family members are grieving. But it didn't anger me on Thursday. I stood, I closed down my work laptop. I muted my phone. I disconnected from everything, and I stood for those 8 minutes and 46 seconds, along with everybody else in that memorial service. And it was very impactful, and I really understood what it was. And Jake, my other show, a lot of my jokes and my comedy is based off of, racial undertone jokes, and what's so funny is that I do the show with another black man, and I do comedy that is racist against him. Being a black man, I'm racist against another black man in some of my comedy on that show. And particularly Thursday, it was very hard to do that. It was very hard to do the waka waka.
Yeah.
But
And it's not that you're racist towards him. It's just,
no, the comedy is there, comedy jokes on, him being poor and having lots of kids and
yeah, it's like
on
irony
state
though.
assistance. Yeah, and that's what makes that's the whole idea. But it was difficult to do that on Thursday
Yeah.
after that experience and stuff. But you know, for the most part, man, it's time to for me to kind of take it in doses. Take it in doses, and you can't even. I told some kids that I mentor on a Zoom call the other night. I said, you know what? There has never been a time that I've really wanted cat pictures back on Facebook. I mean, is anybody's cats doing anything right
How
now?
are you cats doing?
Yeah, how are your cats doing? Put some pussy up on Facebook, and let's get back to the cat
I know,
pictures
dude.
and cute
Even
kid.
OnlyFans are blacking out right now.
I mean, come on. You know what I mean? OnlyFans are sitting there, and they're, diddling or pulling, and they got hashtag BLM in the background. And I'm like, I kind of don't want to think about that right now. I just want to look at you enjoying yourself while I'm enjoying myself. Come on.
Yeah, I've. What they say that there's the different levels of grief, right?
Yes.
And I think I've been like experiencing that in a weird way. And for the man who lost his life, for the social injustices, and just for our country as a whole, I think it's like I'm dealing with grief almost, like and what's the first level? It's anger, right? And
no, the first level is denial.
it's denial, right?
Then anger, then bargaining.
So that's actually great, because I've had to deal with a lot of my own problems, because as you could see, or maybe not see, because I'm like see-through, I'm so white.
You're so beautiful.
Thank you. But as a white man, I have to admit to myself that I am probably a little racist myself without even realizing it, and trying to admit these things, trying to spot out how I can change as a person to not be like that. And and then last week I think I was at the point where I was just angry and just upset and just yelling and screaming at people, even people that I love, I was just fighting with,
Yeah.
and not on like a selfish thing. It's just like I just don't understand where you're coming from, and it's frustrating, and it's like I don't get it, and you know what I mean? And then I think like, yeah, I don't know. And then just like the past couple days, I don't know, it's just been like really emotional for me, like trying to deal with everything going on, and like and it's stupid coming from me, just a white guy who has like never had to deal with the these things, but just seeing it happen and knowing all I can do is just say something. That's all I can do. And
Well, it's not all that you can do. What you've done that you just explained is you have looked inward. That's one thing you've done. You've looked inward to find to reveal things about yourself to yourself that possibly had some racial undertones, and that's a step. That's a huge step. And when people think about what can I do, often they think I've got to write a check, I've got to sign a petition, I've got to do this. The thing is that a lot of this is inward. A lot of this is embedded in people that they don't realize. And when you do self-reflection, which is the hardest thing to do, I believe that's the biggest thing you can do, is to look inside yourself. What is it that you're doing that may be subconsciously affecting or impacting this racial divide. That's a huge step. And a lot of people aren't recognizing that. A lot of people think they can just throw money at it. A lot of people think they can just, put their voices out there and march in the streets. But if they're not doing any self cleaning, if they're not doing any inward reflection, all of your money and your protesting don't mount to a hill of beans. You can do all of that, but if you're not changing who you are, if you're not identifying who you are, and if you're not encouraging and celebrating other people that are looking inward, you really haven't done much.
And this may sound like the most white girl thing ever that I'm about to say right now.
You're so beautiful as a white girl, though.
Thank you. This may sound like the most white girl thing ever, though. Today, I decided to listen to the entirety of Martin Luther King's speech, right?
Yeah.
And I just started crying, man, because it's like that was only 60 years ago. It's only 60 years ago. And he talks a lot about, in the speech, he talks a lot about police brutality. And it's just like...
He does.
Like, and people don't mention that when they talk about his speech, but the whole, like, first half of that speech is about police brutality. And and it hasn't really changed. We've made progression, obviously, but, like, it's still happening. And, yeah, it's just, and I'm sure it's just so stupid hearing me, like, oh, I feel so sad because
no, like, that's not stupid at all. That's not stupid. That's not stupid white girlish either. It's a self-inflection process. You're educating yourself on, because I mean MLK's comments and taglines are being hurled around everywhere. So to sit back and listen to the entire speech in its entirety, I feel is a level of educating yourself.
And I feel like not enough people are doing that. I think they're just throwing around these quotes. Oh, look, I'm going to post this quote on Facebook so everyone likes it and gives it a little heart, but no one's actually going on there and listening to it, which is why I feel stupid about saying it on the show, because I didn't listen to it to, like, bring it up on any sort of social media thing, but yet here I am talking about it. But, like,
I don't think you should feel. I don't think you should feel stupid. I think you're stupid for feeling stupid.
Thank you. I appreciate.
You're welcome.
That.
And think of it like this, Jake. We talked about church earlier. It's like people with the Bible. They take scriptures out of the Bible and bend them to their current circumstance and never really understand the full gamut of that scripture, what came before that scripture, what followed that scripture, what was all entailed in the coloring, and the historic implications of that scripture. They just pick and choose what they want out of that, and that gives them their self gratification. But going back and fully, like, reading an entire book of the Bible, you know what I mean. I don't know many people that aren't preaching and haven't done that.
As a non-religious person myself, you're making a lot of good points with your religion over there.
Well, I'm not talking religion.
I know.
I'm not a religious person either. I'm a faith-based person. I don't believe in religion at all, because religion to me is just a fancy word for cult.
Yeah.
In my opinion, but it's
But as Trump once said, is that your Bible? It's a Bible.
It's a Bible. It's a Bible, and I'm going to hold it like it's hot.
And I'm going to hold it upside down. What the hell is wrong with that guy?
I just imagine that there was somebody that came to him and said, hey, excuse me. Hey, orange face. How about you walk over to that burned up ass church that you've never stopped in front of ever before in your life, and carry this Bible that we found in the bunker, and just pose for it, and all the photographers that are out there got to take a picture of it. But don't worry about your safety, because we're gonna go ahead and tear gas those motherfuckers that are out there right now, just to clear way for you to have this. Just go do this, and it will make everything okay. It will make you the biggest, betterest, successfulest president ever if you hold this Bible that clearly is not yours
and
in front of this burned out church.
And it worked.
Do it.
It worked for some people, because some people were like, "Oh, thank God that Trump is bringing religion back into the White House." I saw this thing here from Bishop Talbert Swan, and it says, calling a black president married for 25 years to one wife with 2 children, no mistresses, affairs, or scandals, the Antichrist. But a white president married thrice, 5 kids by 3 women, mistresses, affairs, and scandals, God's anointed, proves your religion is white supremacy. It's
it's insane. One of the ways that I've been disconnecting, if I could pivot here, one way that I've been disconnecting is a way that you busted me on Instagram. Well, I don't think you busted me. I think I posted it on purpose. I've been watching a lot of PBS because PBS, no political affiliation, no news, no racial undertones.
They do some news,
all about,
right?
Yeah, there's the PBS News Hour, but I watch the underground PBS channel, not the main PBS channel. I watch like the one that's buried, that nobody really hears about, where they just run they just run stuff that a lot only kids are gonna find this. So it's the kids PBS channel, the one with the little cartoon face.
Yeah.
So I've been watching a lot of PBS. Caught an episode of Bob Ross painting.
Oh,
Just painting some happy little trees. Happy little trees. Happy trees. Just there it is, just popping up right there. A little happy tree. Happy tree. I've caught an episode of Bob Ross, caught an episode of Sesame Street the other night, and then I was watching it, and Big Bird was on the screen. And Big Bird normally had a high voice like this when he talked. And then now Big Bird has this pubescent, puberty-ridden voice, and it just caught me off guard. So I posted on my Instagram page, what the hell happened to Big Bird's voice? He sounds like he's hit puberty.
And my response was, why the fuck you watching Sesame Street?
That's the reason why I'm watching it, because it's like PBS is the only, outside of PBS and Cozy TV, those are the only 2 channels that I've been frequenting, because they don't have anything. They're not interrupted by breaking news. They don't have any regular news programs. It's all about education, and Cozy TV is normally old episodes of Bonanza and Roseanne. And that's what I've been going to escape, because you open up Facebook, you open up Twitter, you open up Instagram, Snapchat, everything is all about what's going on in the world, and I need a place to escape.
Yeah. Speaking of which, how's your life of no cable? How's that going for you?
Well, it's interesting, because me, I am a Food Network mega fan, and I miss my Food Network. I miss my Discovery Channel. I saw something come across on Facebook the other day that was talking about something that happened on a Discovery Channel show, and I don't have it. So I'm having a little bit of withdrawal, but I'm also a little depressed about it too, because my cable bill is still astronomical.
Why?
Which it's just a rip off. I mean, it just literally is a rip off. And because I didn't cut the cable completely, I still have basic cable, but basic cable is no different than what you get when you buy one of those little antennas from Walmart.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I'm sitting there, but then also I've been noticing that my Cox cable, looking at my bill, and my internet utilization, now that I'm going back and watching everything through Apple TV, my internet utilization has skyrocketed.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And they penalize you when you go over your allotted amount of data to use.
What's your data limit? How
I think like 100 gigs or something like that.
dude, mine's 1200 gigs. Like I never have issues.
Mine is up there. And I looked at it this morning actually, and I was at 79% utilization, and I have 12 more days in this billing cycle.
Yikes! You should just.
And when you go over, they ding you. They fine you for it.
You should just like increase that. Get rid of the cable completely and increase that.
You know what? I might have to do that. I might have to do that. But during the pandemic,
that's the move.
Cox Cable has eliminated. I'm sure it's probably changed now that somehow miraculously COVID-19 is over.
So true.
Cox Cable was stopping people from expanding their internet packages, but I'm thinking that I might have to look into that. And do, because it's going to be, you go over, it's like $10 per 500 megabytes.
Yeah.
And that's literally just
rip you
one
off.
movie on,
yeah.
That's one movie on Netflix, one HD movie on Netflix.
Yeah.
But I got a kid streaming everything. I got a kid, playing video games with his friends in Saigon. You know what I mean? There's a lot of internet activity going on in my house. And, it hasn't really saved me a lot of money.
Yeah, and we do this over the internet as well.
I'm depressed from not having the channels that I want to watch. But in order to get the two channels that I love, the Discovery Channel and the Food Network channel, I'd have to get all those other channels that I never paid attention to. I do miss watching Ridiculous on MTV. Because it was on for 3 days straight, just back-to-back episodes of ridiculousness.
Yeah. I was thinking about that the other day, about how Food Network has so much content and such a backlog of like old shows too. They could totally have their own streaming service.
They do.
Do they?
I think they do. I think they through the Food Network app. Which I also have. I don't have the premium service, but I think through the Food Network app, you can get some of the shows that air.
Well, that's a little different.
And you can pay like a monthly. But then when you start adding up all of those separate accounts, I'm right back to shelling out the same amount of money that I was for cable.
But could you imagine like if there was a streaming service for the Food Network where it was like every old episode of Rachel Ray and Paula Deen, which we can't talk about her, but Etsy, what's his name? Emerald Lagasse and
Emerald Lagasse
and Guy's Game of Games or whatever.
Guys, Grocery Games.
Whatever those guys are. That one cute Italian lady. I forget her name. Just a bunch of shows of her and
Giada Delarentis.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about.
I do. Oh, Cooking with Giada, and then Bobby Flay,
yeah.
And then
missed the King of Kings. Every episode of Iron Chef, I'd be all over that dude.
Yeah,
I love
I
Iron
miss
Chef.
Guy Fieri. I miss a lot of the shows. I really do. But in the summer right now, I can't cook. We've been having heat wave after heat wave here in Arizona, and when I get hot and sweaty, I get an attitude, and when I have an attitude, I don't want to cook. So it's been really difficult. Lots of cold sandwiches and microwaved processed food has been going on in my house.
Do you ever do this where you watch the Food Network and you'll have like a package of like saltine crackers and you'll like eat the saltine crackers while you're watching the Food Network, pretending those saltines are the food that they're making on the show?
No, because my kitchen prowess actually allows me to see something on the Food Network, go to the grocery store, buy the ingredients, and prepare it.
Yeah,
But I can't do that now because I can't go to the grocery store.
but wouldn't it be nice? It's much nicer to just sit there with crumbs on your belly watching the Food Network. You know what I mean? You don't
I
have to
do
get up.
often have crumbs on my
Don't
belly.
have to get up, start the burners or whatever you do to cook.
Start the burners. It's not a rocket launch, Jake. T minus 1577. Jake is ready to start the burners. It's going to be when we have liftoff to Challenger 45 of ramen noodles. None of that is required.
So at the
But I've been escaping to PBS. That's where I have been going. PBS, and one thing that I've also been doing to try to pull myself away from this is I've been watching a lot of church services on YouTube. That's where I've been going. Israel Houghton concerts and the Gaither Brothers band.
I've got a
concerts.
recommendation for you once we end the show, actually. So
Please do. I've been doing that a lot lately with this, but I've also been still paying close attention to COVID-19.
yeah,
It's not the leading story anymore, but folks, this sumbitch is still out there.
yeah. People keep talking
And-
about a second wave of COVID, and I'm like, when did the first one end?
Yeah, the first one never
Talking
even
about?
ended. This is like an aftershock
Yeah,
of it, and you know, I know some people in the healthcare industry that
got Rick in the house.
our hospitals in Arizona, our ICU beds are filling up,
I've heard that.
and people aren't recognizing that the ICU beds are filling up, and Arizona has surpassed the 1,000-person death count. In addition to the fact that we had last week 2 of the most highest days of COVID-19 diagnosis.
Yeah, and I really don't think you can blame it on the protests yet, because all of those
No, not
cases
yet.
would have just been because we decided to reopen.
It's because we reopened,
Yeah.
and Governor Ducey was called on that. He was like, dude, the numbers are going up and you opened up this state. How do you feel? And he says, well, we anticipated the numbers to go up, but they're skyrocketing at this point. And he keeps pointing out to this percentage of test to positive test. That percentage number keeps falling, is what he was pointing out to last week.
That's just because there's more
Well,
tests.
Yeah, well, Sherlock, that number's going up too. It was at 4.2% at one point last week, and right before the weekend, it was just above 5. So that's going up. So that means more, because we are doing more tests. Yes, we're going to find more positive tests, but we're also seeing people that have never had it before that are now getting it, and they are dying, and our hospital systems are now closer and closer to the verge of overcapacity, where we're going to be having tents and what are those things that help you breathe?
Ventilators.
Ventilators. We're going to have tents and ventilators set up at the Arizona State Fairgrounds before you know it, if we keep going down this trajectory. And it's so funny because he refuses to say the reason why he reopened the state. He refuses to say that. He keeps pointing to the numbers, and unfortunately, bruh, the numbers ain't in your favor, but you keep pointing to them as your ally, but your numbers are contradicting everything you're saying. Come on, Ducey, pull your head out of your ass and admit that you reopened this state because Orange Face threatened you to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, for real. Oh, man. It's a crazy world we live in.
Isn't it great?
Yeah, it's
But
wild.
you know what? I had something that I was going to bring up to you, and it's totally slipped my mind.
Well, at the beginning of the,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
at the beginning of the show, we mentioned music, and we might have talked about music, but if you got something else, please.
Well, it's kind of like something that I wanted to bring up, and I was going to bust your balls about it, but I can't. Um, One thing that's been reoccurring on this show that a lot of people don't know because we don't have a video component is, Jake and I can see each other through a video connection, and normally I'm staring at Jake's ceiling fan, and it drives me insane. So I was really on my high horse when I flipped over to the new gaming podcast that you and Nick are doing, and I looked at that and I said, this sexy white son of a bitch has this beautiful camera angle. And if he comes to the next taping of Jake and Cory and I'm staring at his motherfucking ceiling fan, I'm going to find some way to come through here and stab you in the nutsack. Because your camera angle for what is did you guys ever come up with a name of that show?
Yeah, it's called the Loner Gamecast.
If you had this beautiful frame for the Loner Gamecast and this jacked up laying in your bed angle for the Jake and Cory podcast, I was gonna rake you over the coals. But I have to, even though people can't see us, I have to say it's a beautiful angle this week.
Thank you.
I can see my beautiful Jakey's face, and the whole time it's not shaky. The camera hasn't fallen into the toilet.
You know what a big part of it was actually, where I was living before, because we were recording this I'm recording in my bedroom now because of COVID and stuff. And where I was living before, I had this tiny room and I was just like trying to make it work any way I could. But I actually just moved 2 weeks ago. And so now I have much more room. So I actually have like enough room to set up like my other computer to like film my face while I have the other computer recording, which I couldn't do at the other place because I had no room for the other computer other than just setting it on the floor.
Right.
So now that I have room, I'm perfectly good.
I was totally ready to just smash your face in because of course you know that I was going to I told you last week that you've got a fan in me for the Loner Gamecast podcast because of that dreamy co-host of yours, Nick. And of course, I sat there and I watched the entire 1:07 episode on the tube of you because that dreamy son of a monkey.
Yeah, and we were talking about video games, and you were probably like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
No, I didn't know.
You were just sitting there with your pants down. You had it on mute, and you were just...
Were you there? Eyes on your own paper, Jake. It was I listened to everything that Nick had to say and those beautiful lips. I am man crushing on some Nick. I love that tall drink of water. I don't know why I have not made him more of a friend and ruined his relationship for my own personal gain. But I did. I watched it. I don't know why they shut down all of those events that they shut down and delayed the game. See, I paid attention.
Yeah,
shocking
actually,
you,
yeah,
huh?
that's a good topic to bring up, actually.
Oh, not on this show.
Well, well, I mean, we could take it out of like video game context and like just like, what do you think about people shutting down events for this?
It's a double standard, man.
Yeah.
It's a double standard because you got some events that are shutting down, and then you have other events that aren't shutting down. So I want to know who is the one that's deeming certain events as essential and certain events as non-essential.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like who's making that decision? And I only thing that I can come up with is that it has a lot to do with how COVID-19 is affecting those regions. And a lot of the stuff that you guys talked about on the Loner Gamecast is, I believe, were events that were happening in California.
Well, like the PlayStation
or
event,
New York, right?
The PlayStation event wasn't like an event per se. It was like a pre-recorded thing that was supposed to launch on Thursday, and they decided not to launch it
Because
because,
of the memorial services.
well, that was our speculation. But then,
Oh, yeah.
like, more people have been canceling things. I'm very in tune with the video game thing, so that's kind of just where I'm at. But, like, there was supposed to be like an EA Play thing that was supposed to happen next week, and they canceled it as well. And their reasoning is, I think what PlayStation said is like there are more important voices to be heard right now, was their reasoning.
Yeah, but then there's other organizations that aren't canceling. So is that to say that those other organizations don't think that there are more important issues to hear right now? So it's really wild, dude. I mean, just taking it outside of video gaming, there are things that are canceled that you wouldn't necessarily think should be affected by this, because it's especially with the utilization of what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing a show from 2 different cities, damn near.
Mm-hmm.
So you should still be able to have some of those releases. And if anything, you guys are talking about games that were delayed or something, or a release that was delayed or something like that. And if those releases are going to produce them revenue, why would you want to delay it?
Yeah.
But you got a captive audience right now with everybody sitting at home, everybody behind their computers and connected to the internet. And you have a platform or a business that is built on that. You would want to deliver that to them, So it just begs to question who's deeming what essential and who's deeming what's non-essential.
Right. Yeah, and that's the question, right? I mean, none of these events are events. They're all pre-recorded, or they're all,
right.
Video games. And I think I kind of said it on the show, and to me, they're saying that it's for people to be heard, different people to be heard, which is a noble thing to say. But I can't help but think it's just a PR thing. And everything you do as a business is a PR thing. If you're a big corporation like Sony,
of course,
it's all PR. So
we've talked about that on this show. Everything that America does has to have a underlying dollar amount. And remember, we talked about that on the show. And there were a report that was released last week that there are billionaires that have made substantially large amounts of money during this pandemic. There's the proof of what we were talking about. You never do anything that doesn't have a dollar amount attached to it.
Well, and
in this country,
I think it was just today that the commissioner of the NFL came out and said he was wrong about Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, I did see something like that pop up along the wire.
Like, great. I'm glad you finally said that, but you're only saying it because everyone is on that side now. If you really had something to say, you would have said it then.
So what changed what changed his belief is the question. You know what I'm saying?
His belief changed when he saw that most of the market is standing with Colin now, or kneeling with him, I guess.
I was about to say kneeling with Colin.
So, I think it's all PR. It's all press. I think.
Of course it is. You don't think people are going to use this whole outrage thing for their own personal gain? Of course they are. That's one of the reasons why I haven't utilized what little reach that I have for, because I don't want to gain followers because I put something out about George Floyd or Black Lives Matter. I want to gain followers and fans because they enjoy what I do, not because they embrace because we share a view. I want all kinds of people to enjoy the Jake and Cory podcast. I want all kinds of people to enjoy Fat Guy Radio Show. Yeah. I don't want someone to just come and like my show and support my show because because we share a mutual view. I want people that don't share the view. That makes more interesting conversation.
Well, and maybe our show is different because we are a we're a format where we just talk to each other, and they're a show that has nothing to do with any of that stuff. But
right. Hot talk.
But I didn't say everything I just said on this show as a PR tactic. I said it because I mean it.
Right.
And
your thoughts and expressions, and that's just right. That's why the show has the title of the show as your name in it.
And I think there's some speculation to be said about Tim Tebow as well.
Yep.
He started kneeling because, God or whatever, and then he was quickly removed as well. So I think just anyone with any sort of voice and they start expressing it, they just don't like it. And take that how you will. I think it's messed up, but I mean, at the same time, it's their company. They can do what they want.
True.
I don't see how what Colin did was wrong at all. Drew Brees got some heat earlier this week.
Yeah, and our boy Charles Barkley, or my boy Charles Barkley, had some things to say about it. I haven't had a chance to go out and see it, but I love it when Chuck speaks.
Well, and Drew Brees came out and he was like, you know what, I'm wrong. And so good on him for that.
Yeah, he misspoke. And did you notice that Orange Face was really quick to give him an old thumbs up before he apologized? Old Orange Face was, Drew Brees, great, man. You do a better Trump than I do, or actually you don't. But he was he was quick to put his stamp out there.
Right.
I'm like, you know what, you really, bruh, you Orange Face, you are really quick to go out and say something wrong than you are to go out and say something acceptable. You know what I mean? Have you noticed that about him?
Before he speaks.
Oh, God, no. And you know what? It's almost to the point where now, Jake, I think it is his business model. I think there is a team of Twitterers that are sitting out there with their nose to the ground. Because when I look at Orange Face, I don't look at him as having being of someone with great thumb dexterity. So I would imagine that he has a group of Twitterers that are paying attention to things and immediately tweets on his behalf.
I don't think so. I really don't think so.
I don't think he's that
It's
smart.
too grammatically incorrect for that to be the case.
Hey, maybe they do that on purpose to make it look like it was him.
I feel like, Trump is an old man. I think he sits down at his typewriter. He types it all out, and then he hands them the piece of paper, and he's like, "Please type this on the phone." Oh, I don't know. That sounded more like Schwarzenegger, I guess.
He faxes it over to the Twitterers. He faxes it over. No, he sent it by courier pigeon, and but no, he sends it by Orient Express to the Twitterer people. And they put it in the Twitter machine, also known as his Galaxy Note 2.
You know what? And Drew Brees didn't think before he spoke to, but
right, it happens.
But here's the difference: Drew Brees is a football player who's probably suffering from CTE. Maybe that's rude to say, but he's just a football player. Like, no one gives a shit. Like.
No.
But Trump is the president of the United States. He needs to think before he speaks. And you know what? Our former president, and you know what? This never happens. Former presidents never come out and say anything. But our former...
That's what I was going to bring up to you. Exactly. The former presidents. Go ahead. That's what I was going to bring up to you.
Former presidents never say anything. Once they retire, they're pretty much done. Which,
they get their library and they go eat cookies.
Yeah. You know what? More power to you. I'm sure it's a stressful job. I'm sure you want to be done. But our former president, Barack Obama, has come out and and what he said has been very thoughtful, very well thought out, perfectly worded. He's saying, fuck the rioters, but he's also saying, fuck the police.
Now let's round it out. For all of you that think that we're just going to sit here and give an old snarling to old Obama, our old boy W, he also spoke out as well.
Did he? I didn't see this.
George W. Bush came out and spoke out and posted a video as well, echoing the same words as Barack Obama. And this is what I was going to bring up to you, and I know we're close to time. Never in a day have we ever seen the fact that the country is leaning and wanting former presidents to speak over the current sitting president. Never have I ever seen this, or never in history have you ever had former presidents having a more profound response to the current events than we do right now. Barack Obama speaking gave me a little bit of sense of calm. George W. Bush releasing a statement gave me somewhat a sense of calm. You know what I mean? That's never has it ever been that you would not look to former presidents.
Yeah. And you know, when Obama was speaking, you could tell that dude was just pissed off he had to say anything. He's just like, I just want to be jet skiing. I just want to be chilling. But this is important.
I want to be licking on Michelle.
This is important,
and
I need to say
Michelle
something, you know?
Beautiful. I want to,
I want to put it in.
Michelle, she's sitting over there. She's looking all good, tall, drinking water.
Well, and the interesting thing also about Donald J. Trump is...
Oh, Lord. Don't give him that much. Don't call him by his name. Don't say his name.
Our Lord and Savior, Donald J. Trump.
Hallelujah!
So Bush became president 20 years ago. Literally 20 years ago, he became our president.
Yeah.
Trump is older than him.
Yeah.
That's wild.
And not any wiser. Not any wiser at all. I mean, dude,
No.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. We are experiencing the worst situations under the worst administration possible. And I'm not saying that because I'm speaking against the Republican Party, because I have friends that are staunch Republicans that are beautiful people, that are smart, that are intelligent. It's just a lack of leadership. And if he has done anything good, half of us don't know about it because we're so engulfed in his rhetoric and his stupidity. I know that every president, Obama wasn't a perfect president, Clinton wasn't a perfect president, Bush wasn't a perfect president, first Bush wasn't a perfect president, but their mistakes weren't magnified as much as it is for Orange Face. And he just doubles down and just keeps stepping in his own mess.
And Bush was no spring chicken.
It makes it difficult to focus on anything good.
Bush was he was no saint. He wasn't perfect.
No.
His presidential campaign caused a lot of hurt and pain. And you know what? People could say the same about Obama, I guess. But it just seems different. And, I want to be able to defend the police because I have people in my family who are police officers. One of my uncles is a police officer. But
one of my cousins are a police officer.
But at the same time, my uncle is so racist that I got a sunburn once and he cuffed me. So so
I have a cousin who's a police officer that is so racist. I spilled a bottle of baby powder and he arrested me.
The other way.
Reverse racism.
Well,
but Jake, we're still breathing. We can still talk about this.
You know what?
And damn.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have one critique though for the Loner Gamecast, and this might be from a personal perspective. It might be a little selfish of me to say, but I'm going to put it out there. I love the fact that Nick is, probably going to sport a different type of hat that is video game related. That's great. But if you could pass a word over to Mr. Nick, let's close. And a wider camera angle would be great.
That's fantastic. Listen, before we end the show.
Yes, Jake.
I want to say this about the year. I hope that this year is like when you take off a Band-Aid and you just have to rip it all off at once. And it hurts really bad in the moment. But that hurts really bad in the moment so that in a second it'll feel fine and underneath that Band-Aid will be healed skin. And I I really hope that's what this year is. And yeah,
Hear
and
to
also,
that. I agree.
We didn't get to the music thing.
No,
And
we didn't.
I really hope next week nothing happens between this week and next week, because it'd be great to talk about music and not some bullshit.
Yeah, it would. You know what, Jake? Let's make that our mission. No matter what the fuck happened next week, you and I, next week's show is going to be all about the music.
You know what?
Unless
and we say
unless Nick is shirtless during Loner Gamecast.
Yeah, and we say that, and then next week we're gonna like nuke Korea or something, and it's like,
or we're gonna have aliens walking down Park Central.
it's like,
You know what I mean?
or like the White House is on fire. It's like, how do you not talk about that?
Celebrate it. No, I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
Oh.
That was a brutal layoff. But next, yeah, next week, music
Yes.
on the Jake and Cory
Yes.
pod. Now we won't be able to play any music,
Right.
but music. We'll talk music, and definitely, I will say this. Here's a little teaser. Michael Jackson had a whole lot of messages back then in the day we should have been listening to.
Yeah,
Some
but
songs
is he
that
the
come
guy
to
that
mind.
needed to be saying them?
I know, but we neglected the message for the messenger. Songs like They Don't Really Care About Us, songs about Heal the World, songs about Black or White. So that's just a little hint about where I'm going to be coming from next week if half the earth doesn't explode in the next 7 days. Well, Jake, this has been an interesting episode. Number one, I got my agenda out of the way. Less clothes on Nick on the Loner Gamecast. Please check out the Loner Gamecast on the Loner. What is the YouTube page again?
Lonercast. It's just Lonercast.
Lonercast.
Yeah.
Check out the Lonercast YouTube page where you will find the Loner Gamecast along with the Jake and Cory podcast.
Also, if you look
Don't
up
forget to check
Lonercast,
out,
if you look up Lonercast on like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, you'll see both of these shows now. And if I do another one of
Absolutely.
those like deep dive things, you'll see that there too. So
Yeah, and check out the deep dive with Michael Meniscus. What the hell was his name? What was his name?
William Morancy.
Oh, yeah. So check it out. Check out the Meniscus report with Jake.
Beautiful.
Also on YouTube as
Beautiful.
well. And continue to spread the word about the Lonercast shows and especially Jake and Cory podcast. And when you do listen to the Loner Gamecast show, leave a comment that says, yes, Nick should be naked. All right. I've been Cory Blaze. That's Jake Woods over there. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Jake and Cory podcast. Be beautiful, America.
Ba, ba.
You better start the music way before that.